My 23F boyfriend thinks he 22M makes all of the money in the household. Pretty much title. My boyfriend thinks that he is the one paying all the bills, the rent, the groceries, etc. I make about 2/3 of his paycheck every month, and am actively studying for the MCAT, a huge test to get into medical school that requires months of studying. Every time I want something for myself, like concert tickets, it's his money I'm spending. We share a joint bank account. But whenever he wants something, whether it be from my paycheck or his, it's our money. I just don't know what to do. He is making me feel worthless. Not to mention I do 90% of household chores because he doesn't consider my studying work, and I therefore need to make up for it by doing all of the chores. I'm exhausted. Mentally and emotionally. I don't know what to do, because I truly do love him, but this isn't the same person I knew years ago. Edit. I want to thank you all for the responses and helpful advice. There are so many replies, I wish I could respond to all of them. 1. Separate finances. 2. Stop doing all the chores. 3. Make an exit plan, save money for your own place. That way, if it gets too much on you, you can leave and he can have all his money. That joint account needs to go away, stat. The credit card thing is fucking rough, but at least with separate bank accounts he can't stop you from spending your own money, and he won't be able to steal your money for his fun either. I suggest opening a new account without his name, and depositing every cent of every one of your paychecks there, first. Your share of the bills can be specifically transferred to the joint account, or you can pay them directly, but he gets no direct access. That's job 1. His reaction to the change of arrangements determines job 2. Why the fuck do you have a joint account with a boyfriend? Insane. No. Separate your finances. You aren't married and he's already trying to control you financially. At best I'd agree to a joint account for household purposes only. Or separate entirely and decide who pays how much each month out of your individual accounts. This way your money can be spent at your discretion without having to explain to anyone what you're spending your money on. Just because he makes slightly more than you doesn't mean he gets to decide if and when you can spend your money. You have a joint account with someone you're not married to? Whose stupid idea was that? I, 34 male, found out today my wife, 33 female, of 10 years had an affair last year. Today I found out my wife of 10 years had an affair last year. I got a text at work from the other guy explaining the situation. It seems he's mad she ended it, so he decided to let me know in order to get back at her. I called her and she admitted all. I'm so lost. We have an 8-year-old son. I love her so much. I kicked her out and then called her within 3 hours to come home. I want to try to forgive her, but I DK if I can. Can anyone give me any hope that our relationship can be salvaged? Sadly, the only reason she admitted it was because her jilted lover threw her under the bus. She most likely would have never told you about it and might have been looking for another lover. Now here is your problem. You know about this affair from AP, not from her. What you don't know is how many others there have been, or how many random hookups. She isn't going to confess about those because you don't know about those. All you know is she is good at keeping secrets. Sorry brother, that's really tough to hear. Personally, there's no coming back from a situation like this. The trust is broken completely. Who knows what else she's capable of hiding or lying about? Do you want to live in paranoia? The child doesn't deserve a toxic household that lacks trust and maintains bitterness and resentment. It's time to plan to get a lawyer and file for divorce. This is irreconcilable. Best of luck. I've never been through this, but the questions I would want her to answer. 1. When did this start? 2. When did this end? 3. Who ended it and why? 4. Have there been others? 5. Why should I believe this is the only AP or hookup? 6. Is my son biologically mine? I feel like you don't even remotely know how deep this problem is. Get tested for an STD. My 28 female fiancé 28 male of 4 years doesn't think I'm attractive. Basically the title, but my 28 female fiancé 28 male, who we'll call Dave, was at work and asked me to email him some documents from his laptop which he left at home. I logged on and saw an open conversation between him and his friend Paul, and they had mentioned my name. I was curious and wanted to see what they were talking about. I know I was invading his privacy, but curiosity got the best of me. Paul messaged Dave about how he was more attracted to his wife's looks over personality. I scrolled up and saw Dave had said he was more attracted to my personality than my looks and nearly broke up with me early on in our relationship but stopped himself because looks weren't important to him. I was devastated when I read those messages as I had no idea my fiancé thought I wasn't attractive. I waited for him to come home and told him what I found, and he immediately apologized and started crying and told me he loved me and didn't mean for me to find out. I asked for some space and went to stay with my parents for the past few days. Besides this, Dave and I have never had any issues, a few fights here and there but nothing we couldn't get past together. Whilst looks aren't the biggest thing, his message made me doubt whether I'd be an idiot going back to him or if I should go the other way. I hope this is enough information as I've never posted before and any advice is appreciated. Edit to add. I apologized for snooping when I talked to him after work and we're past it, and he was understandably upset, but that's something we were able to get past. Thanks for everyone's input so far, it's been helpful, and I think I'll talk to him with all of your comments in mind. So, you can probably learn to live with this. You can learn to not think about it much. You can say your love is more mature and beyond looks, which is all that matters. But I don't think you can ever really emotionally recover from learning that your fiancé doesn't find you very attractive. You really have to ask yourself whether you want that hanging over your head the rest of your life and how you're going to deal with it every time he meets a new woman, watches porn or comments on an actress in a movie or TV show. Because God, is this a pathway to serious insecurity? Think about all this and then talk to your partner. Maybe he'll make it right. I would suggest therapy. If you decide to stay with him every time he gives you a compliment, you will think he is lying because your self-esteem has been damaged. Everyone has their preferences when it comes to looks, but it doesn't mean they don't love you. But you need to build up your confidence or you're going to be doubting a lot of what he says or does your whole marriage. I started dating my husband of 11 years in high school and thought he was the goofiest looking motherfucker ever. I was almost immediately in love with his personality though. 15 plus years later, and I honestly think he's the sexiest man alive and am attracted to everything about him. Relationships are complicated, and when you first meet someone, you have opinions about them. It's normal. I can't speak to his experience or feelings, but I definitely started dating my husband for his personality, not his looks. For the record, I'm also a goofy-looking motherfucker. Oof, this is hard. I'm the type that wouldn't be able to stop thinking about this. I personally wouldn't be able to go on, because I'd never forget it. Opening parenthesis. No one wants to be in a relationship with someone who had to convince themselves to stay because they thought you weren't good enough for them. It doesn't matter that he never intended for you to know. The fact he feels this way is the problem. To make matters worse, he's saying this to Paul from work. That is so beyond disrespectful. Only you can decide if you're willing to go back to this relationship, but you have every right to be hurt by this, and it's not your fault for reading his messages. If he felt so strongly about protecting your feelings, he never should have been running his mouth to Paul from work, let alone being stupid enough to leave the messages open and then asking you to use his laptop. M47F43 My wife has been secretly chatting to a guy from her work. Should I be worried? My wife and I have been together for 25 years and have had a very happy relationship and always been really close. A couple of months ago, completely out of the blue, she started having some completely new interests with music and she floated the idea of becoming a vegetarian. She initially told me the music was just something that she came across randomly and that people at her work had been talking about vegetarianism, which is where her interest in it came from. Gradually, after putting the pieces together from things she said, I worked out that these new interests have stemmed from a guy that she has become friends with at her work. Even though it was a bit out of character for her, I didn't think too much of it. Then a couple of weeks ago she had her phone connected in the car and I noticed a few messages coming in from this particular guy, and as soon as she saw the notification on the screen she immediately said, "It's just work stuff." Fast forward to this week and she asked me to check something on the calendar on her phone, and when I unlocked her phone I found that she had the messenger conversation left open with this guy and they've been messaging each other constantly for months during the day and night. Now from what I could see I didn't see anything that suggested anything directly romantic, flirty in the messages, but she was sharing how this music that he was getting her to listen to made her feel and expressing thoughts and feelings that she's never expressed to me. My gut feel from what I could see was that it seemed like it was my wife who appeared to be the one who kept initiating the conversations between them, as there was sometimes 2 to 3 messages from her for each message from him. The issue I have is that my wife has always been firm with me in the past about her absolute hatred of cheating, and that if I was forming close friendships with girls and messaging them constantly, that it would be a deal breaker for her. This is something I've always been completely fine with and actually agree with, and that's why this has really upset me. I'd say that what's happened pushes into emotional cheating territory, and if the shoe was on her other foot, I know for a fact that she would 100% consider it to be emotionally cheating. I initially decided not to say anything after seeing the messages, but eventually after a few days she could tell something was bothering me, so she asked me what was wrong, so I basically asked her about the guy from her work and what was going on between them. She started saying that he was just a work colleague who she spoke to about music. Sometimes. I asked how often was sometimes, but didn't reveal I knew how often they were chatting. She said it could be once or twice a day, maybe some days they wouldn't message, which was a lie because it was way more frequent than that. I challenged her further on it and fibbed by saying that I've seen her messaging him before when we've been in bed, and she broke down in tears and said that he's just a guy from work, he's married and they just connected over music, but there's absolutely no romantic connection at all and she doesn't see him in that way. She then told me that she's going to cut off all communication with him and remove him as a friend on Facebook. She said that she's gutted she's hurt me and assured me that she loves me and couldn't imagine her life without me. What I'm struggling to process and understand is why she was lying about it and whether I did the right thing by confronting her about it. In my heart I know she wouldn't cheat and that it's most probably just something that started off innocently. But I still can't shake the nagging feeling that when a woman starts adopting the interests of another guy, that it's a red flag that there was more there than just friendship. She's been hiding it, and lying about it. That's pretty much a solid base for cheating. If it was a friendship, she wouldn't have a reason to lie. It was perhaps something that the guy wasn't aware of, but on her side this is absolutely without doubt an emotional affair. Perhaps she should read more about what an emotional affair is, so she can better understand how it sometimes can creep up on a person. You both obviously need to have talks about your relationship and where you can better support each other. However, she should understand that you may have lost trust in her and you both need to work on repairing that. A lot of this effort will be on her. Don't assume it's now done and dusted, as these things tend to fester, especially if more info comes to light or there are no consequences or discussions to prevent it from happening again. Yes, be very worried. Most likely she's bound to cheat eventually if this goes on. Most people who emotionally cheat don't really notice until it's already happened. It's always, "We're just friends." Secretly chatting. That's all you need to know. If it's innocent, then nothing needs to be secret. You've probably nipped this in the bud. But nevertheless, I'd still be concerned. Make it absolutely clear to her that if you find out she's maintained contact with this man in any way, then it's over and you're walking. You will not tolerate any disrespect from her. It may also be beneficial for her to seek IC to work out why she connected with this man and put your marriage at risk. Good luck.